I arrived to address you this afternoon carrying a suitcase, a blue suitcase, which is the suitcase that I used when I came from England to the United States in July of 1960. I had become a vegan in the previous months, influenced largely by writings from my pen friend, who was to become my husband, Jay Dinshah. I wasn't an overnight vegan. I made changes bit by bit. And I've been on the path of veganism ever since, for 62 plus years. That's a long time. I can't tell you everything about it, but we'll touch some things that you may find interesting.
Yes, Dinshah.
Move the table.
I don't know if anyone can hold the mic for me sometimes. Let's take a look in the suitcase. As many of you know, veganism isn't just about what we eat, it's also about what we wear.
Mm-hmm.
What I have here is a pair of vegan gloves that my father bought for me in the late 1950s. They were made by an organization called Beauty Without Cruelty, which was founded by the Lady Dowding, and she and her friends went to the stores to see what clothes there were for vegans to wear, and it was the introduction of the fake fur coat. So they were allowed to put labels into those coats saying beauty without cruelty, so that when people were shopping they could find something that wasn't real fur. It was a lot kinder not to be wearing fur, and a more economical article of clothing. If you do have a fur coat, you have to put it in cold storage during the seasons when you're not wearing it. That's not necessary with a fake fur coat. So one of the first things they actually produced, the Beauty Without Cruelty, their own product, was these gloves, Wyliga gloves. Prior to this, I had been wearing sheepskin gloves to keep my hands warm while I bicycled to school on cold mornings. But I changed over to these, and that was part of my becoming vegan. In those days, it was not convenient to be vegan. There weren't soy milks and almond milks and so on in the market to buy. You had to improvise and make your own milks. Well, first of all, I tried putting orange juice on my cornflakes, but I didn't really care for that. So we did have an electric blender. My father was very keen on this blender. He used to use it to blenderize the apples that had fallen down from the trees overnight and make a mix of raw applesauce. So anyway, I used this blender and some peanut butter to make peanut butter milk, which was a little better than the orange juice on my cornflakes. But things are going to improve a lot. When I arrived in America, one of the first things we did was, in the evenings, Jay would make up a batch of banana ice cream, which consisted of putting bananas and cashew nuts in the blender, and then we'd pour them into a container and freeze them, and then the next day we could eat banana ice cream, and that really filled the bill. It was very good. I learned cooking from my mother. She had some recipes. I mean, everybody eats vegan food. You realize that? You don't have to be vegan to be enjoying potatoes, apples, breads and grains and so forth. It's just you don't think of it that a good 3/4 of your plate is probably vegan food. And if people hear that you've become vegan, they can't imagine what you eat, because they have a tendency to put eggs into everything and cheese on top. But if you look at the food plate that the USDA has now, you will see the different quadrants in it, and then the glass of milk. And I find this useful when talking to people, getting them to understand veganism, that fruits are supposed to be a little less than 1/4 of the food you eat. So we and everybody else should be eating fruits and fresh fruits. Vegetables are a larger portion on that side. We should all be eating vegetables, different colored vegetables, starchy vegetables, the less starchy vegetables, and leafy green vegetables and orange vegetables. And I found out that when people ask you where you're going to get your this and where are you going to get your that on a vegan diet, dark green leafy vegetables answers most of those questions. They're not so rich in calories, but you're going to get calories from things we tend to eat plenty of anyway, the bread, the potatoes, and so forth. And then we come to the category of what used to be called the meat group, and then became the meat and bean group, and is now called the protein group. And this is the area to work on to help yourself change to a vegan diet, by learning to use beans and nuts and seeds in your diet, which will replace the meat very well. So for most people, the average person, if they want protein, they think they need meat, but you don't. You can have beans and nuts and seeds, and just think of all the things you can make with beans. Think of all the kinds of beans there are. There are beans for every letter of the alphabet, many having several there. And you can use beans in salads, in soups, in pâtés, and dips. There's a wonderful way you can do that. So anyway, I began to learn all about these things because Jay had a list called Vegan Variety, which is in the front of this book, my book, The Vegan Kitchen. And so that was good for dispelling the idea that we were poor, impoverished people. The Vegan Kitchen is a book that I wrote in 1965, the first edition. So it went through a few editions and it got bigger. So I have some examples of this. We even had a French edition that came out. And this book was distributed widely in the United States from a publisher-distributor based in Colorado who got it into health food stores all over the country. We also had a distributor in Australia, and it was in health food stores all over Australia. It was David Phillips who arranged that for us. Now I'm going to get back to what we're going to wear instead of wool and real fur and so on, by showing you the coat that Jay bought for me. A good husband will buy his wife a really good winter coat. That's very important, right? So this is the coat that Jay bought for me. It's from Sears Roebuck, and it's still doing well after 60 years.
Wow.
Much better than wearing fur, although I know some of you are going to be aware that it's made from petroleum products, and we're trying to move away from those things. And I'm glad to learn, as you will have noticed too, that the fashion industry is learning about other fabrics that we can make and use, such as, well, obviously cotton you know about, and linen is another good source, but there are also tree products that are used for making fabrics. I currently have a set of sheets on my bed made from eucalyptus. Bamboo offers a lot of possibilities. Yesterday I heard someone on the radio who's got a company producing fashion products, and he's developing it from totally plant-based materials. And when you're done with it, you can bury it and it will decompose into the ground. The number of kinds of fabrics, new fabric sources that there are today is they're making things out of mushrooms, leather out of mushrooms, pineapple skins. So it's really fascinating, and I think this is going to be developing very well into the future, so watch out for that. When the American Vegan Society started, many people or organizations were helpful in us learning about veganism. There was the American Natural Hygiene Society and Dr. Herbert Shelton in San Antonio, Texas. Dr. Shelton had a very strident health message that he gave out to people. He talked about the foods that come from animals as second-hand foods, which really that's what they are. We're eating directly from the plant kingdom and doing much better with that. A fact that's noted by the Vegan Society in England, that produced a booklet called First Hand, First Rate. So when you choose vegan, you're choosing the best. When did veganism start? Well, many people think it started when they first heard about it. The word vegan has been around since 1944, when a group of vegetarians who had stopped using milk and eggs decided to form a group, and they sought around for a name. They had some rather funny suggestions, Sanivore, Benivore, and things like that. But they finally came up with vegan, the beginning of vegetarian, and the end of vegetarian, taking vegetarianism to its logical conclusion. The definition of vegetarian is eating foods from the vegetable kingdom with or without the addition of eggs and milk. So vegans are included in that. But back in those days, people thought it was dangerous to be vegan. So the Vegetarian Society didn't really want to include these vegan people in the group because they thought it was unwise to give up milk and dairy products. So in 1944, a group met in London and started the Vegan Society, so they could put forward what they were coming to practice, and they could share their experiences, and so that's where the word vegan came from, 1944. But veganism has been practiced way back in history. Many people taught different aspects of veganism. Let me go back to the Buddha and virtuous path.
Trying to figure out which cards. One of them yours?
So here's one of the sayings of the Lord Buddha. Disciples. Sorry? Disciples will not ingest products of milk or cheese because thereby they are depriving the young animals of that which rightly belongs to them. And he had other sayings such as true disciples will not wear leather and so on. And as I say, it goes back in history. Thinkers have developed the philosophy of vegetarianism and veganism. Before there was a word vegetarian, that word was coined in 1850s. People following a vegetable-based diet were often known as Pythagoreans. Anyway, I shouldn't get too much into the history because I've got to continue with my story. So, well, when did veganism begin? Well, you can say it began when you started on the path of veganism. You don't have to do it all at once. You know, you can follow one, go step by step, as I did. We were very much influenced by people in the past before us. We didn't start veganism in the United States. There were vegans before us. Dr. Catherine Nimmo and Reuben Abramowitz formed a vegan society out in California in the 1940s. They used to import the magazine, the vegan magazine, from England and distribute it in the United States. And they tried to start a vegan community in Oceano, California, and that is halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. However, as often occurs with community endeavors like that, it's hard to get going in the place you want to be and earn a sufficient living. And so Reuben went back to Los Angeles to work. Dr. Nimmo stayed in California, and mainly that organization consisted of correspondence. But Dr. Nimmo was around when Jay started the American Vegan Society. She was the first member to join the American Vegan Society. We visited her. She used to write letters to us, and she was full of good sage
Can you
advice.
pass this down to see if anybody's
We also knew Reuben Abramowitz. Reuben has a story of being a conscientious objector and being imprisoned for his beliefs. Of course, he wanted vegan food when he was in prison, which was hard to come by, and they weren't very good at taking care of his needs. So he volunteered to be a cook. And soon more and more prisoners were eating from the vegan table and the food that Reuben was making. You can read about some of these people in this wonderful little book. Here's Homelessness, which is available in the book room. There's a chapter in there by Lady Dowding, A Beauty Without Cruelty, also by Dr. Catherine Nimmo and Reuben Abramowitz and other very interesting people. Here's Homelessness. So one of the things that we did with the American Vegan Society is we wrote and compiled books. So I have spent many hours collating pages and stapling books together, many, many hours. Originally we used to print the books on mimeographs, and that's how things started out. Some of those stories you'll find in this book, which is the first 30 years of the American Vegan Society. You can see Jay at the printing press and so on and so forth. We spent some time out in California. We were going to start a community out there too, but it was difficult to find jobs. There's a lot of military and aircraft work in California. When their people aren't not engaged in making aircraft and military things, they're out in the general market, and then it's difficult for us to find the kind of work that we would do. We spent about a couple of years out in California, living with other people. which is, you know, I mean, if you're married, things don't always go right all the time. You've got to negotiate and learn to get along with each other and share your habits and so on. A couple of problems that we used to have living in community with maybe 3 or 4 other families was that who's going to do the dishes and how do you like your bananas? So many people believe that you should eat bananas when they're truly ripe and getting speckled. Other people say that you should, they like to eat them when they've got a green tip still. And the problem is that the green tip people eat the bananas before the speckled banana people get a chance to eat bananas the way they like. Anyway.
I'm just making an announcement.
The Vegan Society in England was very helpful to us. Eva Batt, who was their secretary and later their president, was also spent some time as a trustee of the American Vegan Society. And she wrote this very good piece called Why Veganism, which you will find in the book Here's Harmlessness also. And she assembled a vegan cookbook called What's Cooking, her recipes and recipes from other people in the Vegan Society. The Vegan Society celebrated its 21st anniversary in 1965. Jay and I were over there. We had been over for a World Vegetarian Congress, which has happened in the summer. And then in the fall, they had the 21st anniversary of the Vegan Society. Here is the dress that I wore. I don't fit into it now. So I have things here to prompt my memory. We were living in Escondido, California, and there's a knock on the door. A gentleman arrives in a drip-dry shirt and pants and carrying a tennis racket. His name was Fred Whittle, and he was from Australia. He was an itinerant monk, and he was a vegan. One of the things he taught us, well, he taught us not to be, really rigid and strict, be relaxed, and learn how to take care of ourselves and not be totally focused that we all exhausted ourselves pushing veganism. He made a fruit cake, he showed us how to make his soy patties, and he introduced us to cashew nut cream. Cashew nut cream is one of the favorite things we make around here. It consists of a couple of apples, a cup of water, and a cup of cashew nuts all mixed in the blender. As a vegan, I would tell you that the blender is one of my favorite, if not my real favorite, pieces of equipment in the kitchen. With a blender, you can make milks, you can make creams, you can make pureed soups, you can do a lot of things which make your life easier. And so we should pay a lot of tribute to the blender. It has made things easier. It's not that they didn't make coconut milk years before there was a blender, they did. But it took a lot of time. You'd have to grate the coconut, soak the coconut, boil it, and then strain it through a cloth and squeeze the coconut milk out of the cup. So no doubt that's what the Buddha and his disciples did. One of the things that Jay and I have done over the years is arrange for conferences of one sort or another. Many times here, garden party conferences, but the biggest conference that we were instrumental in organizing was the World Vegetarian Congress in 1975 in Orono, Maine. People came from all over the world for that Congress. It was about 1,500 people attended. The University of Maine was the most hospitable place you could go. They did everything possible to make it work. They wanted to be provided with recipes, a batch to feed 100 people. Well, I wasn't that much of a cook, but anyway, we developed recipes in the kitchen here. We would make them for 16 or 20 people, and then we would do the math to make it up to 100 portions. We gave them the recipes, they tested the recipes, and it worked out very well. The result was this Congress cookbook that later got incorporated into a later edition of the Vegan Kitchen. Someone who came to the Congress was Dick Gregory, if you remember him.
Oh, yeah.
He ran for president, and he was a great vegan and exponent of natural foods. So food and people and conferences are part of many ways in which my vegan life has developed. And we have influenced many people, as you can influence many people. Just by being vegan and being an example, you don't know how much of an impression you make on people. Because it's just proving that it can be done and that you've got the resolve to stick to it is very helpful. Many people have been influenced in this book that my daughter Anne assembled, Powerful Vegan Messages, gives testimonies by a number of people who've been influenced by what we've done. So I encourage you to start your vegan journey, continue your vegan journey, and you're going to meet wonderful people, and you're going to influence people, and let the ripples go out so that we can create a vegan world, which is what we need to do today. Thank you.